Hey, this is Dan from Ramblin' Ambition, and today we are going to talk about how we wired our ARB air compressor. Now, if you're just joining the channel, we are working on our 170 extended all-wheel drive Sprinter van. In our last video, we showed how we used a Flatline Van Co bracket to mount our twin ARB compressor. And in this video, we're going to talk about how we wired it, to our van, how I have it set up, the airlines, where they're going and how I routed them, and maybe a couple tips. So if this is something you're interested in, please stick around for the video. Okay, we're gonna talk about the electrical connections first. On this compressor, there are two basic connections. You have your main power cord, and this is a weather sealed cord. So you have two power feeds, two grounds, and this is for each of the motors. The next plug you have is the control wire, which basically just has a ground and a purple activation wire on it, but it leads to a bunch of other things. So ARB makes their wiring harnesses so you can connect lockers and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm on the fence about whether or not putting a rear air locker in this may or may not be a good idea. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving the wiring harness that allows us to use those pigtails. So these pigtails are right here, and those are for front and rear air lockers. So what I've done is I've routed that harness along this cooling line, around the back, behind the steering, and on top of the brake booster. Now for me, I put a power post in here that comes directly from the battery, and you can see that right down there. And so I connected the two lines, which are right here, from the ARB compressor. They have their own fuses on them, and then it connects directly to the power post. So that power post sends power all the way back to the compressor. So the power comes back in there, so you have live power coming into the compressor itself. Now there's a series of switches and relays that get activated by that second wiring harness, which I'm going to show you how we kind of put that together. So we are not using these locker connections, so we're just going to leave them right there. And then this wiring harness has got a lot of lead to it, and you have a lot of different options. There are a different type of isolating switches, and then there's this one, which is an activation switch, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. The main wire that comes off of this that provides power to that switch is this red and orange wire, or red and yellow wire. And basically all we did was we use lever nuts, and this is just a single lever nut, and basically you stick a wire in on this side and a wire in this side. You can have different gauges, which is what makes this really nice, is that you can have a thicker gauge here and a thinner gauge there, and it just makes a really nice positive connection. So on our van, we're using a couple Garmin power switches to power a bunch of different things. So what we did was we took this wire, the positive wire, through the lever nut and made a connection into our Garmin power switch. And what that does is it's going to give us the ability to switch on and switch off the air compressor. Now, you also have the ability to just utilize their ARB switch, which can be mounted in a bunch of different locations. But because I don't want to have to open up the hood every time I want to start the air compressor, or have it in a remote place that I always have to kind of open up or uncover to turn it on and turn it off, what I did was I electrical taped that switch closed, or open, if you will. So powering everything on, because typically this wire would go to a live source, and then the switch is what controls things. And so what I've done is I've connected the switch utilizing the terminals that they supply. ARB has a really good website that kind of shows you how to make all the connections if you need to. So the switch is in the on position. But because my power feed runs through a Garmin power switch, the air compressor doesn't run unless I open the switch, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the engine bay Garmin power switch, and I have our ditch lights, I have our front bumper lights, I have our underbody lights, I have rear scene lights, and then I have the ARB air compressor there. And the nice thing about this switch is that as long as I'm connected to the switch, all I have to do is push the button and the compressor will come on. And now it's off. And it's just that easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten. I'm gonna zip tie that wiring harness up to the other one, and then we'll talk about how to run the compressor lines and what that takes. Before we get to the airlines, I just wanna say that you can just pull that purple wire and put a switch in between. So again, there's only 2 wires that come out of this, and this is just supplying the power feed to the relay inside. But you can just cut this harness open, put a switch in on this purple wire, and get rid of the rest of the harness. But like I said, I don't know if I want to use some of those features a little bit later, so we just kind of left it intact. So let's talk about how we're running our airlines. So we're gonna have 2 ports. We're gonna have one at the front of the van and one at the back of the van. So that requires us to do a few things. Now ARB uses the JIC4 fitting with 1/4-inch line. And so all we did was we put an elbow right here coming out of the compressor into our first 1/4-inch line. So this is stainless steel braided line with a sheath on it. You can buy these lines from a bunch of different places. The nice thing about these is they don't require any kind of sealant tape, because the fitting on these is what creates the seal. So the metal to metal connection at the angle of the JIC fitting is what makes the connection. I'll show you what I'm talking about. There is a 37-degree taper right here. On the inside of those hoses is a corresponding taper flare that screws down, and that connection to this part right here is what creates your seal. So you can get those hoses from just about anywhere. ARB makes their hoses. You can buy some stuff on Amazon. I particularly like the Grimm, Grimm off-road hoses. They're a little bit less expensive than the ARB hoses, but they're really, really nice. And so they come in a bunch of different lengths. And I used a series of different ones to kind of make the connections, and I'm still missing one hose because I kind of miscalculated just a bit, but we'll still be able to show you what I'm talking about. So on the front, we connected this line to the elbow. So this was an elbow with a female fitting and a male fitting. And this runs to this line, and it follows down, and it comes to a T, which is right there, which splits the front from the rear. So the front line runs right here, and then the rear line runs right there. Now I did wrap that in some plastic wire loom just to kind of give it some extra protection. So you can see the line comes down. Right now it's just resting right here on the top of this, and I'll get that zip tied down, and then it's going over to the front port. So I took another one of those ARB fittings and just put it on a piece of angled aluminum and just screwed that right up into the back of the bumper, and you can see here's that line again. Dust cover, and then there is your ARB air chuck. So I wanted to get that airline all the way to the back. We ran from that front T behind the heat shield. Then it comes around the frame underneath on top of these step pieces up here. And then we had to have a fitting, a union between a 10-foot line and a 10-foot line. And then we started using the van's own kind of holes to route things through. So it comes up underneath the frame and then runs through a series of holes just to keep it away from the drive line and the exhaust. So it comes out, comes through the center, runs through there. Ultimately, this is going to be the chuck that comes to the back of the bumper. Like I said, I miscalculated by about 3 feet. So I have a 3-foot line, and it's going to follow this hole, and then it's going to come it's going to come back and mount probably just like that. And so we'll have our rear air chuck here. I may put it like right here on the side of this step, I haven't quite decided, you know, how I'm going to mount it, but it's basically going to terminate out here. And what that's going to do is allow us to take our air hose and get the front two tires, take our air hose and get the back two tires, and then have an air port in the back to be able to inflate anything like a paddle board or a raft or inner tube, or use a blowgun to blow dust off or sand off or dirt off or whatever it might be. It just gives us a lot of options that I like. So the connections are pretty simple. It's pretty easy to do. You just have to make sure that you have chafe protection anytime you run it through the body. And I suggest you zip tie it up as much as you can just to eliminate the vibration. The great thing about the 1/4 inch line is it pressurizes really fast. And I'm really happy with this setup with the Garmin power switch, because it really allows me to activate that air compressor whenever I want to and wherever I want to. So as long as I'm connected to the power switch through Bluetooth, I can do it. So this is the power and the air connections to our ARB twin compressor. It's super easy to set up, super simple to kind of put together, and it's really going to provide us a lot of utility. As soon as I get that other 3-foot section in, we'll be able to finish up this back piece, and then we'll be done. So hope you guys got something from the video. ARB has got great resources on their website for how to make connections and how to do all the things as far as getting the air compressor set up. Like I said, I'm using Grimm off-road airlines. I highly recommend them. They're sold online at a bunch of different retailers, so they're pretty easy to get. That's GRIMM, not sponsored, but they do make a great product. So this is Dan from Ramblin' Ambition. Thanks for checking out our video. I'll leave a link in the description about last week's video, which was talking about how we mounted the air compressor to the Flatline Van Co bracket. And stick around as we continue to build out the van. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.